The signal had been there since the beginning of everything. Every species that reached the stars eventually found it hiding in the background radiation of space. It was a single word, repeating endlessly across the universe, sent from the very center of creation itself. The aliens called it the primordial echo. For 12 million years, the Galactic Council had tried to understand it. 47 different alien species, each smarter than the last, had spent countless generations trying to translate that one simple word. The Vrelnathi built massive computers that could think in 1 trillion languages at once. The Kolrum created quantum minds that processed reality itself as data. Even the ancient seraphim, beings made of pure energy who claimed they remembered when stars were born, could not crack the code. Everyone agreed on one thing. The word was impossible to translate. It existed in frequencies that made no sense. It followed no known rules of language or mathematics. After millions of years of failure, most species stopped trying. The primordial echo became just another cosmic mystery, something to study but never understand. Then humanity found it. Katie Morrison was not supposed to be the one who changed everything. She was just a linguist working on a research ship called the Wanderer, humanity's first vessel to travel deep into alien space. Her job was simple and boring. She studied how alien plants communicated with each other. Nothing glamorous. Nothing that would make history. The discovery happened during a routine power recharge. The Wanderer had stopped near a pulsar to let its engines rest. Katie was alone in the lab, running background scans while everyone else slept. She was not even looking for the echo. She just noticed something strange in the data. The harmonics were wrong. Katie squinted at her screen, adjusting the display. She had heard about the primordial echo, of course. Every human who went to space learned about it in training. The untranslatable word. The greatest mystery in the galaxy. But nobody had told her it sounded like this. Ben Hughes walked into the lab carrying 2 cups of coffee. He was the ship's navigator, a quiet man who preferred numbers to people. He set 1 cup next to Katie without asking if she wanted it. "You are still awake," he said. "Listen to this." Katie played the echo through the speakers. It sounded like static mixed with music mixed with something else, something that made her chest feel tight. Ben listened. "That is the famous untranslatable word? Everyone treats it like one signal," Katie said. "But it is not. Look." She showed him her analysis. "There are multiple layers, different frequencies stacked on top of each other. It is not one word. It is several words compressed together." Ben raised an eyebrow. "The Galactic Council has studied this for millions of years. Do you think they missed something that obvious?" Katie shrugged. Maybe they were looking at it wrong. Or maybe they never experienced what this word describes. She worked through the night. Ben stayed with her, bringing more coffee and asking questions she barely heard. Katie ran the signal through every translation program humanity had ever made. She tried ancient Earth languages and modern alien ones. She tried treating it like music, like mathematics, like computer code. Nothing worked. At 4 a.m, frustrated and exhausted, Katie did something nobody had ever thought to try. She ran the primordial echo through a program designed to understand how human babies learn to speak. The computer beeped. Translation complete, Katie stared at the screen. Her hand started shaking. The word appeared in simple English text, home. But there was more. Hidden in frequencies that only her human-made equipment could detect were other words. A full sentence, home, lost, find, return. Katie stood up so fast her chair fell over. Ben jumped, spilling coffee on his uniform. "What is wrong?" he asked. "I translated it," Katie whispered. "I translated the primordial echo." Ben looked at the screen. He read the words. He read them again. "That cannot be right. It is too simple." "That is exactly why nobody found it," Katie said. She was already typing, preparing a message for the Galactic Council. Every species tried to find something complex, some advanced cosmic knowledge. But the message is not complex. It is the simplest thing in the universe. Someone is lost. Someone wants to go home. Within 6 hours, the Wanderer was surrounded by alien ships. Dozens of them from every major species in the Council. They all demanded to know what the human had discovered. They all wanted proof that this young species, barely 200 years into space travel, had solved the galaxy's oldest mystery. Katie stood in the communications room, speaking to more aliens than she had ever seen in her life. Their translators turned her words into clicks, whistles, hums, and colors. "The message contains 4 concepts," she explained. Home, lost, find, return. The sender compressed them into a single transmission using emotional resonance patterns. A Vrelnathi scientist named Kelveth interrupted her. His voice came through the translator as cold and precise. Emotional resonance is not a real linguistic principle. Language is mathematics. Mathematics is universal. But feelings are not, Katie replied. The message is not just information. It is a cry for help. Someone sent this message at the beginning of the universe, and they were alone. Desperately, terribly alone. Every species in the galaxy tried to translate it using logic and computers. But the message needs something else. It needs empathy. The aliens argued among themselves. Some believed her. Many did not. How could the youngest species in the council solve what the oldest could not? It made no sense. It was insulting, but Katie had proof. She showed them the mathematical breakdown of the signal. She demonstrated how human neurology, specifically the way humans process emotions like loneliness and homesickness, allowed her equipment to detect frequencies other species could not perceive. There is something else, Katie said. The message contains coordinates, a location in space. The communication channels exploded with noise. Every alien spoke at once. Katie waited for them to quiet down. A massive insect-like being named High Counselor Zraith finally restored order. His voice rumbled through the translator. You wish to travel to these coordinates, Zraith said. It was not a question. Katie nodded. Someone sent the first word ever spoken across space. They sent it in loneliness. They have been calling for billions of years. The least we can do is answer. Zraith's compound eyes studied her. And if this sender is dangerous? If this is a trap? Then I will spring it, Katie said simply. But I do not think it is. I think someone has been waiting a very long time for anyone to understand. And I think we owe them the courtesy of showing up. The council debated for 2 days. Finally, they agreed. Humanity would lead an expedition to the coordinates. Of course, 12 other species would send ships too. Nobody trusted humans to go alone to possibly the most important location in the universe. But as Katie prepared for the journey, she felt something growing in her chest. Not excitement, not fear, something else. The message said return. Return implied someone had left. But left from where? And why did only humans understand the ache in those ancient words? The council chamber existed between galaxies. It was a massive sphere made of crystal and technology that floated in empty space. Inside, thousands of different species could meet, each in their own protected environment. Some needed water. Others needed vacuum. Some breathed chlorine gas. The chamber kept them all alive and comfortable while they made decisions that affected trillions of beings. Katie stood in the human section, a small transparent box that gave her Earth air and Earth gravity. Around her, in their own protective boxes and tanks and force fields, sat representatives from the most powerful civilizations in known space. Above her, High Counselor Zraith towered like a building made of black chitin and sharp angles. His species had founded the council 8 million years ago. You claim to have translated the untranslatable, Zraith said. His mandibles clicked and Katie's earpiece turned the sound into English. Your species has existed for a fraction of a second in cosmic time. You have been traveling in space for less than 200 years. Explain how you succeeded where we failed. Katie had prepared for this moment, but standing here, surrounded by beings who had built empires before Earth's dinosaurs existed, still made her nervous. She took a deep breath and reminded herself why she was here. With respect, High Counselor, I think every species approached the problem wrong, Katie said. You all tried to translate the echo using your own languages and your own way of thinking. But the message was not meant for any specific species. Then who was it meant for? Asked Counselor Meraxes. She was made of living liquid metal that rippled when she spoke. For whoever could understand being alone, Katie answered. For whoever knew what it felt like to be separated from something they loved. She brought up her data on the massive display everyone could see. The word is simple. Home. But it has been encoded in a way that requires emotional understanding, not just linguistic analysis. Humans have something called phonosemantics. We connect certain sounds with certain feelings. We also have a unique brain structure that makes us feel homesickness as a real physical pain. Our minds literally hurt when we are away from places we love. Interesting theory, hummed Counselor Thelnor, a being made of living crystal. But what proof do you have? Katie showed the full translation. The signal has 4 main ideas: home, lost, find, return. But in the deeper frequencies, there is something else. Coordinates, a map to a specific location in space. The chamber erupted. Hundreds of aliens spoke at once in languages that became a wall of translated noise. Katie waited. She had expected this reaction. Zareth raised one sharp claw. Silence fell immediately. Coordinates to what location? He asked. I do not know yet, Katie admitted. But I know this. Whoever sent this message was alone. Completely and totally alone. They were crying out for someone to find them, or at least to know they existed. Every species has been so focused on finding some complex meaning that you miss the simple truth. This is not a cosmic puzzle. It is a distress call. Someone has been screaming into the void for billions of years. Nobody spoke for a long moment. Then Meraxis flowed forward, her metal body catching the light. If you are correct, human, then this message is older than most civilizations in this room. Older than the Council itself. Whatever sent it is probably dead by now. Katie nodded slowly. Maybe, but do you not want to know? Do you not want to know who was calling out across space, begging for someone to hear them? Zraith's many eyes fixed on Katie. You want to mount an expedition? I want to answer, Katie said quietly. Someone spoke the first word ever transmitted across the cosmos. They spoke it while drowning in loneliness. The least we can do is tell them that we heard. The debate lasted 6 hours. Katie stood in her transparent box the entire time, listening to species argue about protocol and jurisdiction and safety concerns. The Vrelnathi claimed they should lead the expedition because they were older. The Kolrum said their processing power made them ideal. The Seraphim Collective simply demanded control as their right. But in the end, a vote was held. Humanity would lead the expedition to the coordinates. Of course, representatives from 12 other species would accompany them. Nobody was foolish enough to let humans travel alone to what might be the birthplace of consciousness itself. As Katie left the chamber, Ben met her in the docking corridor. That was incredible, he said. You convinced them? I did not convince everyone, Katie replied. Half the council still thinks I am wrong. The other half thinks I am right but does not trust us. We are going to be watched very carefully. Does that bother you? Katie thought about it. No, what bothers me is the word return. Return means coming back to something. But coming back from where? And why do only humans feel the sadness in that word? Ben did not have an answer. Neither did Katie. But as they walked back to the Wanderer, she could not shake a feeling that they were about to discover something that would change everything. Humanity thought they knew about the universe. The expedition fleet assembled over the next 3 weeks. 15 ships in total, each representing a different species. The humans contributed the Wanderer, now upgraded with council technology that would have taken humanity 1,000 years to develop on their own. Katie would serve as the mission's chief linguist. Ben would pilot the ship and communicate with the alien crews. Greg Palmer joined them as military liaison. He was a commander in Earth's Space Force, a serious man who did not smile much. Katie did not particularly like him, but she understood why he was necessary. If they found something dangerous, someone needed to make the hard decisions. The night before departure, Katie stood in the observation deck of the Wanderer, watching Earth turn slowly below. It was beautiful, blue and white and green wrapped in thin atmosphere, holding everything and everyone she had ever known. Having second thoughts? Greg asked. He had entered so quietly she had not heard him. No, Katie said. Just thinking about home? About what that word means. Greg joined her at the window. My wife is down there. 2 kids, boy and a girl. I think about them every day I'm up here. Do you get homesick? Every single day, Greg admitted. But that is the price of exploration, right? You leave home to find something new. You hope what you find is worth what you left behind. Katie thought about the primordial echo, about someone calling out that word for billions of years. What if you can never go back? What if home is gone forever? Then I suppose you carry it with you, Greg said. In here, he tapped his chest. The memories. The love, the people. Maybe home is not a place. Maybe it is just the feeling of belonging somewhere. Katie looked at him with new respect. She had thought Greg was just a soldier. But he understood. He understood what the message really meant. We should sleep, Greg said. Tomorrow we jump to the coordinates. No telling what we will find. But Katie stayed at the window long after he left. She thought about the last as she had started calling the sender in her mind. She thought about waiting for 13 billion years for someone to answer. She thought about the kind of loneliness that could drive someone to encode a distress call into the very fabric of reality itself, and she wondered if finding the sender would bring them peace, or only more questions that nobody knew how to answer. The fleet departed at dawn, though dawn meant nothing in space. 15 ships arranged in a formation that put the Wanderer at the front, jumped to faster-than-light speed and headed toward the edge of everything known. The coordinates led them to a place the older species called the Null Zone. It was a region of space so ancient that all the stars had died billions of years ago. Only black holes and neutron stars remained, slowly decaying in the darkness. "This is where the map leads," Ben said, checking their navigation. "But there is nothing here. No planets, no structures, just dead space." "Keep going," Katie said. "The signal is getting stronger." And it was. Every ship in the fleet detected it. The primordial echo, louder and more desperate than ever, calling from the darkness ahead. Home. 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 Someone was waiting for them. Someone who had been waiting for a very, very long time. The journey took 3 months. 3 months of traveling faster than light through increasingly empty space. The stars disappeared first. Then the distant galaxies faded from view. Finally, even the cosmic background glow began to dim. They were traveling to a place so old that the universe itself seemed to have forgotten about it. Katie spent most of her time in the linguistics lab, analyzing every variation in the primordial echo. As they got closer to the coordinates, the signal changed. It grew stronger, yes, but also more desperate. The word home repeated faster and faster, like a heartbeat speeding up. The other species linguists worked alongside her. Most still doubted her translation, though they were too polite to say it directly. Kelveth, the Vrelnathi scholar, was the most vocal. Emotional context is irrelevant to pure information, he insisted one day. His translator made his clicking sound like a university lecture. Language is mathematics. Mathematics is universal. But meaning is not universal, Katie replied. She had this argument with him at least once a week now. 2 + 2 = 4 everywhere in the universe. But what 4 means to someone's survival or happiness or sense of belonging changes everything. Sentiment, Kelveth said dismissively. The primordial echo is data. You are projecting human weakness onto it. Katie wanted to argue more, but an alarm interrupted them. Ben's voice came over the intercom. "Katie, you need to see this." She rushed to the bridge. Through the main viewport, she saw something impossible. Hanging in the void where space-time itself seemed to bend and break was a structure. It was bigger than planets, bigger than solar systems. It looked organic, like something that had been grown rather than built. All curves and chambers that pulsed with dim, dying light. "What is that?" Greg whispered. The Colrum science officer checked his instruments. "Preliminary dating suggests this structure is 13.7 billion years old." "That is impossible," Greg said. "That is only 100 million years after the Big Bang. There were no planets yet, no life, nothing that could build something like that." But Katie knew better. She knew because the primordial echo was coming from inside that structure, louder than ever, screaming one word over and over. Home. "It is real," Katie breathed. "The sender is still there." The council ships held back, cautious. Years of experience had taught them not to rush toward ancient alien artifacts. But Katie convinced Ben to bring the Wanderer closer. As they approached, sections of the structure opened like eyes waking up. Passages appeared, glowing with soft light that seemed almost welcoming. "It is inviting us in," Katie said. "That is a trap," Greg warned. He had one hand on his sidearm. "Everything about this feels wrong." "No," Katie shook her head. "It is not threatening. Can you not feel it? The signal is not aggressive. It is pleading. Whoever is in there has been alone for so long they can barely remember what company feels like." "You are projecting again," Kelveth said over the communication channel. His ship hung back with the others. "Do not anthropomorphize unknown phenomena." But Katie ignored him. "Ben, take us in." Ben looked at Greg. Greg looked at Katie. Finally, the commander nodded. Slowly, Greg ordered. Weapons ready. First sign of trouble, we run. The Wanderer entered the structure through one of the glowing passages. The other ships followed at a distance, ready to flee. Inside, they found corridors that seemed to be made of crystallized time itself. The walls showed the birth and death of galaxies like paintings in a museum. Chambers branched off in every direction, filled with technology so advanced it made Katie's head hurt to look at. This is incredible, Ben said. He could barely pilot the ship because he kept staring at the walls. This makes the Council's best technology look like stone tools. They traveled deeper into the structure, following the signal. It grew stronger, with every passing moment, until Katie could feel it vibrating in her bones. Not just hear it, feel it. A loneliness so profound it had weight and texture. Finally, they reached the center. The chamber was enormous, bigger than the Wanderer, bigger than all 15 expedition ships combined. At its heart, suspended in a field of energy that seemed to hold back the decay of time itself, floated a being. It was roughly humanoid. 2 arms, 2 legs, a head. But it was not made of flesh or metal or anything Katie could identify. It looked like someone had tried to give form to pure thought, and only partially succeeded. The being was deteriorating, its edges flickering like a candle in wind. Katie stepped off the ship before anyone could stop her. She crossed the chamber floor, her boots echoing in the vast space. Behind her, she heard Greg shouting for her to come back, but his voice seemed far away and unimportant. The being's eyes opened. They were old. Older than anything should be. Older than stars or galaxies or time itself. And they looked at Katie with something that made her want to cry. Hope. Then the being spoke, and only Katie understood. The voice did not come through her ears. It bypassed her translator entirely and went straight into her mind, into her heart, into every part of her that had ever felt alone or afraid or far from home. Every other member of the expedition stood frozen. Their instruments detected communication happening, but they could not understand a single word. You came, the being said, and its voice sounded like every goodbye Katie had ever heard. Katie felt tears on her face. Who are you? I am the last, the being replied. The only one who remained to watch. Images flooded Katie's mind. Not words or data, but pure memory. She saw a universe before this one, a cosmos that had died in fire and collapse. She saw a civilization so advanced they had learned to encode their consciousness into reality itself. They had survived their universe's death by becoming part of the next universe's fundamental structure. There were billions of us once, the last said. We carried ourselves forward into this new universe, hoping to find it as rich with life as ours had been. But we arrived too early. The stars were still forming. Planets were molten. Life was impossible. So you waited, Katie whispered. We waited, the last agreed. But time is cruel, even to those who think themselves beyond it. My kind grew tired. One by one, they chose to fade away. They said there was peace in letting go. They said home was behind us, not ahead. The last's form flickered more intensely. Katie could see cracks spreading through its structure. But I could not abandon hope. I thought if I waited long enough, life would emerge. Intelligence would rise. Someone would hear me calling. Someone would understand what it means to be alone, so far from home that returning is impossible. You have been calling for 13 billion years, Katie said. I sent the signal at the beginning, the last said. One word, compressed with everything I felt. I thought surely, if life arose, someone would recognize the emotion in it. The being's eyes dimmed, but no one did. Species came and went. Civilizations rose and fell. They detected my call, but they only heard noise. Mathematics, data. They could not hear the loneliness. Behind Katie, the expedition members crowded around their instruments. Kelveth was clicking urgently, demanding to know what was happening. The other aliens looked confused and frustrated. They could see Katie talking to the being, but they could not understand a word. Why can I understand you? Katie asked. Why only humans? Because your species is young, the last replied. Young enough to remember what it means to long for home. Old civilizations grow beyond such feelings. They become efficient, logical, spread across so many worlds that home becomes an abstract concept. But humans still carry the ache of separation in your hearts. You still look at stars and feel small. You still grieve for places you have left behind. The being reached out with a hand that was barely solid anymore. It touched Katie's forehead gently. I have waited so long. I am ready to rest now, but I needed someone to know. I needed someone to understand that I was here, that my people existed, that we loved our universe even as we tried to love this one. Do not go, Katie said. She did not know why she was pleading. This being was older than galaxies, dying by choice after an eternity of loneliness. What right did she have to ask it to keep suffering? But the last smiled. It was the saddest smile Katie had ever seen. I must, the last said gently. I must rest, the last said again. Its voice was fading, becoming harder to hear even in Katie's mind. But I give you a gift, Katie Morrison. I give humanity the gift that once belonged to my people, the knowledge of what we learned in our universe, the understanding of what we discovered in this one. Perhaps your species will use it wisely. Perhaps you will remember us. What do you want us to remember? Katie asked. Her voice was shaking. That we made a mistake, the last said. Its form was dissolving now, breaking apart into light. We became so advanced that we forgot how to be together. We could reshape reality itself, but we could not bear the vulnerability of genuine connection. We scattered ourselves across existence, each alone in our supposed perfection. And in the end, I am all that remains of a species that conquered death but could not conquer loneliness. The last hand was still touching Katie's forehead. She felt warmth spreading through her skull, then down her spine, filling every part of her body with information. It was not painful, but it was overwhelming. Images, equations, concepts that had no words. The entire accumulated knowledge of a civilization that had existed before time itself. Tell them, the last whispered. Its voice was barely a breath now. Tell them that someone was here at the beginning, watching, hoping. Tell them that the first word spoken was not about conquest or discovery or knowledge. It was about longing. It was about home. And then the last was gone. It dissolved into pure light that radiated outward in waves. The Wanderer's instrument screamed as they tried to process the surge of energy. Katie fell to her knees, overwhelmed by the flood of knowledge now encoded in her mind. She could see things that should not be possible. She understood concepts that human language had no words for. Ben rushed to her side along with Greg and half a dozen others. The alien representatives finally unfroze, their instruments going wild as they tried to understand what had just happened. What did it do to you? Greg demanded. He was scanning her with a medical device, watching the readings with growing alarm. Your brain activity just spiked to levels that should not be possible. You should be dead. It went home, Katie said simply. She looked up at them with eyes that had seen the birth of the previous universe. And it left us the coordinates. The next few hours were chaos. Katie could barely stand. The knowledge in her head was too much, too vast. Ben and Greg carried her back to the Wanderer's medical bay. The alien ship surrounded them, demanding answers, demanding to know what the human had learned. But Katie could not explain. Not yet. The information was still organizing itself in her mind like a massive library sorting its books. She lay in the medical bay, staring at the ceiling, seeing equations and theories and technologies that made the Galactic Council's greatest achievements look primitive. The last's people had discovered how to generate perfect energy from nothing, how to communicate instantly across any distance, how to reverse entropy itself and bring dead stars back to life. They had mapped not just this universe but the fundamental patterns that governed all possible universes. And the last had given all of it to her, to humanity, because humans were the only species who had heard the loneliness in that ancient call. When Katie finally felt strong enough to sit up, she found the entire expedition command staff waiting in the medical bay. Human and alien alike, they all stared at her with a mixture of fear and hope. What did the being give you? Zraith asked. The High Counselor had come personally, leaving his council chamber to make the journey. That alone showed how important this moment was. Knowledge, Katie said. Everything the last people ever learned. Technologies that would let us reshape reality. Power beyond anything the Council has ever possessed. The room erupted. Every alien spoke at once, their translators creating a wall of noise. Kelveth's voice cut through the chaos. This knowledge belongs to the Council. It must be shared immediately. We demand full access, another voice said. The Seraphim Collective has the right to this information by age and authority. Katie held up her hand. Surprisingly, they all went quiet. The knowledge will be shared, she said. But there is a problem. The last encoded it specifically for humans. Only human minds can properly interpret it. Every attempt by other species to access the data has resulted in corruption or complete incomprehension. She pulled up a display showing the data structure. It looked like a tree made of light, with branches that twisted in impossible directions. See? Every piece of information is wrapped in emotional context. The last people did not separate feeling from fact. Their science was built on the understanding that observation changes reality, and the observer's emotional state matters. Most species have evolved beyond that kind of thinking. You are saying our advancement makes us inferior, Meraxis said. Her liquid metal form rippled with what might have been anger. No, Katie said carefully. I am saying that humanity is young enough to still be vulnerable. Young enough to understand loneliness and homesickness and longing. The last waited 13 billion years for someone who could hear not just the word but the feeling behind it. That was us. Not because we are special, because we have not grown beyond caring about things that cannot be measured. Zraith leaned forward. His massive form cast a shadow over Katie. What does humanity intend to do with this knowledge? This was the moment Katie had been preparing for. The moment that would define humanity's place in the galaxy forever. She took a deep breath. We will share it, she said.
All of it. Freely, but on one condition. The room exploded again.
Aliens shouted in their native languages. The translators could not keep up. Katie waited for the noise to die down. The last people died alone because they forgot how to be together, she said when she could finally be heard. They became so advanced that vulnerability seemed like weakness. They scattered across existence, and that isolation destroyed them. We will not repeat that mistake, and we will not let the galaxy repeat it either. She looked directly at Zraith. Humanity will share this knowledge with any civilization that commits to what we are calling the last protocol. Before receiving advanced technology, species must demonstrate that they have not sacrificed connection for efficiency, that they still value bonds between individuals, that they have not optimized away the inefficiencies that make life worth living. You cannot dictate terms to the Council, Zraith said. His voice was cold. We are not dictating, Katie replied. We are honoring a dying wish. The last did not want its knowledge to create another civilization of powerful, lonely beings. It wanted to give the universe a chance to do better than its people did. For a long moment, nobody spoke. The chamber was so quiet Katie could hear her own heartbeat. Then Kelveth stepped forward. The Vrelnathi scholar who had been so dismissive of emotional context now looked different somehow. Smaller. Uncertain. The human is correct, Kelveth said. His translator could not quite mask the shame in his voice. My people have not experienced homesickness for 10,000 years. We optimized our psychology to eliminate attachment to location or other individuals. We believed this made us stronger, he paused. But I listened to the primordial echo after learning its translation, and I realized that in all my millennia of life, I have never once called out for home because I have never allowed myself to have one. Other counselors began to murmur. Some agreed. Others denied. But Katie could see realization spreading through the chamber like light breaking through clouds. Humanity had not translated the first word because they were the smartest species. They had translated it because they were the only ones still capable of hearing the ache in that ancient voice. The Galactic Council debated the last protocol for 3 weeks. Katie remained in the expedition fleet's medical bay during most of it, her brain still processing the vast amount of knowledge the last had given her. Human scientists arrived from Earth, the brightest minds humanity had to offer, and they worked with Katie to begin unpacking the information. What they found was revolutionary. The last people had discovered technologies that could solve every problem the galaxy faced. Perfect energy generation that produced no waste, methods to terraform dead worlds in weeks instead of centuries, medical advances that could extend any species' lifespan indefinitely, weapons that could destroy stars and shields that could protect entire solar systems. Every species wanted access to this knowledge, The Vrelnati filed formal claims based on their age and contributions to the council. The Colrum argued that their processing capabilities made them the natural recipients. The Seraphim Collective simply demanded it as their right as the oldest known species in the galaxy. But the knowledge would not transfer. The last had encoded it in a way that only human minds could properly understand. Every attempt by other species to access the raw data resulted in corruption or complete incomprehension. The information was there, but without the emotional context that humans naturally provided, it was meaningless noise. This frustrated the aliens to no end. Some accused humanity of hoarding power. Others suggested that humans had somehow tricked or sabotaged the data. A few of the more paranoid species even proposed taking Katie and the other humans by force, extracting the knowledge through methods they did not specify, but that sounded unpleasant. But Zraith held the council together. The High Counselor was old, even by the standards of his ancient species. He had seen civilizations rise and fall. He had watched species destroy themselves with technology they were not ready for, and he recognized something in Katie's proposal that others missed. The last protocol was not about control, it was about survival. On the 21st day of debate, Zraith called for a final vote. Every council member was present, either physically or through holographic projection. The chamber was packed with more species than Katie had ever seen in one place. Zraith spoke in his own language, a series of clicks and hisses that the translators turned into solemn words. We have a choice before us. We can reject the human proposal and attempt to take their knowledge by force. We can continue to demand access without conditions. Or we can accept that perhaps after millions of years of advancement, we have lost something important. He turned his massive body to face Katie. The human species is correct. We have optimized ourselves into isolation. We have become so efficient, so logical, so powerful, that we have forgotten why we reached for the stars in the first place. We did not explore the cosmos to be alone. We did it to find others, to connect, to belong to something larger than ourselves. Meraxis rippled forward. Are you saying we should return to primitive emotional states? Become less than what we are? I am saying that power without purpose is just another form of death, Zraith replied. The last people achieved everything we dream of achieving. They conquered death, reshaped reality, survived the end of their universe, and they died anyway, alone in the darkness because they forgot how to be together. The vote was called. It took 6 hours to tally because of the sheer number of species involved. When the results came in, the last protocol had passed by a narrow margin. Humanity would share the knowledge freely with any civilization that could demonstrate they had not sacrificed connection for advancement. The chamber erupted again, but this time with a different energy. Some species celebrated, others left in anger. But Katie saw something she had not expected. She saw many of the alien representatives looking at each other, really looking perhaps for the first time in centuries. She saw Kelveth touch another Vrelnathi's arm, in a gesture that his species had not used in millennia. She saw Meraxis flow closer to another liquid being, their forms briefly merging before separating. Small gestures, tiny movements, but they meant everything. 6 months later, Katie stood on the observation deck of the Wanderer, watching Earth rotate below. The planet looked peaceful from up here, blue and white and green wrapped in clouds, holding billions of humans who had no idea how close they had come to changing the galaxy forever. The last protocol had been adopted by 18 species so far, with more joining every week. The knowledge transfer had begun slowly and carefully, with humanity serving as interpreters between the cold data and the warm understanding required to make it work. It was exhausting work. Katie spent most of her days in meetings with alien scientists, trying to explain concepts that required feeling, not just thinking. She translated not languages but emotions. She taught ancient species how to recognize loneliness in themselves and others. She showed them that vulnerability was not weakness but strength. Some species embraced the protocol eagerly. Others struggled. A few rejected it entirely, choosing to remain in their efficient isolation. Katie felt sad for them, but she understood. Change was hard, especially for civilizations millions of years old. Ben joined her at the viewport holding 2 cups of coffee. You look tired. I am tired, Katie admitted, taking one of the cups gratefully. Did you know the Colrum have a word for loneliness, but they have not used it in 5,000 years? I spent 3 hours today teaching their lead scientist how to recognize the feeling in himself. He cried. I did not even know they could cry. You are doing good work, Ben said. Am I? Katie stared out at Earth. Sometimes I wonder if we are qualified for this. We are just humans. We have been in space for 200 years. Who are we to teach species millions of years old how to live? We are the species that heard someone crying in the dark, Ben said simply. We are the ones who cared enough to answer. That has to count for something. Katie smiled. The council wants me to design a memorial. For the last and its people. What will you put on it? Just the message, Katie said. Home, lost, find, return, nothing else. Let everyone who sees it remember that the first word spoken across the cosmos was not about power, or knowledge or conquest. It was about longing. It was a word spoken by someone who missed something they could never have again. That is heavy, Ben said. Good, Katie replied. Let it be heavy. Let it remind every species that grows too confident in its advancement that power without connection is just another form of death. She finished her coffee and set the cup down. The last gave us the key to technologies that could remake reality. But the real gift was the reminder that none of it matters if we forget why we wanted to reach for the stars in the first place. That night, Katie called her parents on Earth. She told them she loved them. She asked about her younger brother and her childhood dog. She talked about the weather and what her mother was cooking for dinner. Simple things. Inefficient things. Human things. Because that was the lesson written into every piece of data the last had left behind. The most advanced civilization in the history of 2 universes had died alone, because they forgot that the opposite of loneliness was not independence. It was connection. And humanity, young and flawed and still learning to walk among the stars, was the only species that remembered how to hear someone calling for home. 3 years after the expedition, Katie returned to the coordinates one final time. The council had built the memorial exactly as she designed it, a simple monument floating in the darkness, with the 4 words carved in every known language and many that had been forgotten. Home, lost, find, return. But Katie had added one more word, carved in human English at the base. The council had allowed it because they understood what it meant, even if they could not feel it the way humans did. The word was simple, just 5 letters. But it carried the weight of 13 billion years of loneliness finally ending. Heard. Katie stood before the memorial in her spacesuit, alone in the darkness where the last had waited for so long. She placed her hand on the cold stone and whispered words that nobody else could hear. Thank you. Thank you for waiting. Thank you for hoping. Thank you for believing that someone would understand. We heard you. We will remember you, and we will not forget what you taught us. Somewhere in the cosmic microwave background radiation, the echo continued. But it was different now. Instead of desperate loneliness, it carried a new quality. The piece of a message finally delivered, finally understood, finally answered after 13 billion years of waiting. Home. Lost, find, return, heard. Katie returned to the Wanderer. Ben was waiting for her at the airlock. Ready to go home? He asked. Katie smiled. It was the first real smile she had felt in months. Yes, I am ready to go home. And as the Wanderer turned away from the memorial, heading back toward Earth in warmth and connection, and all the inefficient, beautiful things that made life worth living, Katie understood something the last had tried to tell her. Home was not a place. It was not a planet or a star system or a structure floating in the void. Home was the feeling of being understood, of calling out into darkness and having someone answer, of being alone and then suddenly not being alone anymore. The last had found home in those final moments when Katie heard its call and understood its loneliness. And humanity had given the galaxy a